G'day everyone, this is Troy from Dashcam Owners Australia, and today we're bringing you another dashcam review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Blackvue DR650 one channel. This camera is a 1080p HD camera with GPS and Wi-Fi. Now we'll start off by taking a look at what comes in the box. Starting top left, we have our quick user guide, then our Wi-Fi tips section. Then we have our micro SD card reader, as well as 5 cable clips, a spare 3M tape mount. Going to the bottom, we have our charging cable, then the camera with the included mount. The included mount enables full 360-degree rotation and utilizes 3M double-sided tape to mount to the windscreen. Now we'll give you a quick look around the camera, starting with our front-on view. This is without the mount, as you can see. Not a lot to see there, just a little bit of white text with the lens there. Now on the side-on view, this is where we can enable and disable the audio recording by swiping your finger across that black lens, and it will enable or disable the audio recording. Not a button, just a nice easy way of doing it. Along the back we have our record and GPS indicator LEDs, as well as a speaker for our voice prompts that this camera gives you. And on this side we have our power input, as well as our Wi-Fi on and off button. Now the Wi-Fi on and off button also doubles as the format button if you hold it down. Now, as you can probably see here, there is a little panel covering it up, and when you flick that over you have access to the included 16GB SD card. A nice and sleek design, but it can be a little bit tricky to get that memory card in and out. And finally, we just have a few shots here with the included mount, so you get an idea of what it all looks like as a unit. Those few shots with the lens cap on. Now I'll just give you a few examples of it mounted in my car. As you can see there, sits very nicely in front of the mirror. Very sleek unit and hard to notice. And the camera from the front on shows that there's not a lot to really show that you're even running a camera. Now, as you probably noticed, there's no screen or even really any menu buttons on this camera, so nearly everything is controlled via the Wi-Fi apps. I'll be using my Samsung tablet to demonstrate the app side of this dash cam. So here you are with the main menu. Gives you a few options there, but we'll be going into the Blackvue Wi-Fi menu, which does control most of the features for this camera. Now, as I do that, it goes into this menu, which gives you an option to view all the pre-recorded footage that is currently on the memory card. As you can probably see there, it does give me options for front and rear, but seeing as this isn't the dual channel model, there will be no rear footage shown. Now, as well as being able to play back footage from the selected files there, I can also view live footage from the menu up the top, view the camera configuration, the about, so the firmware and details such as that. Now, selecting live view would take me to a live view from the camera, as shown here and designated by the live at the bottom of the video there. This is useful for just getting the camera set up at the right angle for your car. Now, as you saw, I had a lot of options back there for the different files I'd already recorded. Now, going into one of them would play one of those videos. I've just taken a screenshot to show that, yes, it actually does it. Didn't have a real way to record my tablet to show it properly. So hopefully this can get the point across. It does the job. It's a little bit stuttery being across Wi-Fi, but you can still play back and review footage on a phone or tablet with relative ease. Now, if I were to go back to that main screen and then go into the configuration menu, it gives me options for both the app settings and the firmware settings, meaning the camera. Now, I'll start off with the app settings here, which are pretty basic, like using the Blackvue player as standard, enabling the Wi-Fi strength meter, and your screen rotation settings. Moving on to the firmware settings menu, which is the settings for the camera, we have a few more sub-menus, which is our basic settings, which include time zone settings, the image settings, the resolution. Then we have our sensitivity settings. This is for setting the G sensitivity, the etc. settings, so your LEDs and your voice notifications. Then there's the Wi-Fi settings for your password, the Wi-Fi name of the camera. Then you have an option to synchronize the time with the time zone. Going into the basic settings menu gives us our time zone options, the image setting options, and the recording setting options. Every time zone is available, so I won't go through them. In the image settings menu, we have our resolution options, our quality options, and our brightness levels. The resolution options are 1080p at 30 frames, 1080p at 15 frames, 720p at 30, and 720p at 15 frames. Our quality settings are normal, high, and highest. Then for brightness, we have a sliding adjustment bar, so you can get that just the way you like it. Onto the recording settings menu, we have our normal record enabled, voice record enabled, date and time display, our speed display unit, so kilometers and miles per hour, our normal recording unit, which is the amount of time you want each file to go for, then the event parking road recording unit, so the amount of time you want those files to go for. Then there's the auto switch to parking mode, so after a couple minutes of being still, the camera will automatically switch on to parking mode. The next menu is our sensitivity settings, which enables us to adjust the normal recording G-sensor, the parking G-sensor, our motion detection, and a speed alert, so we can set the camera to have an overspeed and notify us if we are going over the limit. Now, going into one of those G-sensor menus just gives you the option to set the sensitivity of each individual sensor. So you have top, bottom, left, right, front, back. So you can get the adjustment just right depending on how many potholes there are around you. Now we have the etc. settings menu, which is enable the recording LED, the settings for the security LEDs, settings for the voice alarms, the alarm volume, and we can add in our user info. And finally, I'll give you a shot of the about of this camera just so you can see what firmware I'm running for the purpose of this review. Now, before we take a look at the footage, the usual disclaimer to say that YouTube can adversely affect the quality of the video, so it may not look as good as it does on my screen. We'll start off with some lovely morning footage, and just a little note to start off with that I accidentally stuffed up with this review a little bit and didn't put the right time zone on the camera. I didn't notice until I started the review, so a lot of the times in this videos will be wrong, but this is about 7:30 in the morning. Now, as you can probably notice, the camera's doing a very good job adjusting to the rapid light changes and still picking up a lot of the registration plates on the cars around. Now, this camera does record in a bit of a lower bitrate than many, but it does a good job on sort of keeping the quality there. What this means is you get more recording per memory card, but you also still get good enough quality to make out the details you need. Now, this camera with its normal compression mode enabled will get you about 4.5 hours on the 16GB card, which is about equal to what you get from a 32GB card on a normal camera without this compression. So it's pretty good, and so considering you can run up to a 64GB card, it's a very handy little thing. Now, in a moment I'm going to cut over to the in-car audio so you can hear what the microphone on this camera is like. And I'll start with that now. Alright, g'day all. I'll just give you the standard microphone test with this Blackvue. Hopefully it's all very clear considering that this is quite a pricey camera. Now, as you heard from that audio, very respectable, which is what you'd hope for a camera in this price range. Now onto some nighttime footage here. We're in a well-lit main street, but you know, the camera's still doing a fairly good job. There's a bit of blurriness when you're sort of at speed, but all in all, the camera does a very good job both night and day. If you have a look around on the street, you can make out a lot of the signage on the businesses, so that's generally a good indicator that this camera's got a more than capable nighttime ability. Unlike the driver in front of me. Anyway, we'll move on to a bit of a darker clip so you get an idea of what this camera is like without all the illumination around. It'll just be a basic, normal street with average street lighting. And here you are, just your average sort of suburban street lights every now and then. And it does sort of get a bit darker. The footage isn't quite as bright and vibrant as going through like a main street or a town centre. But the camera was still able to pick up the license plate of the vehicles like travelling up the lane next to me, so that's pretty much what you want from a camera. Now that I've given my thoughts on the video footage, we'll move on to my likes and dislikes of this particular camera. So, my favourite things about this particular camera, it's got a great form factor, nice, small, sleek design. They've really thought about it. The video quality is very good, it's quite respectable. The compression that this camera utilizes, it allows for a lot of video footage to be stored. But there's also a double-edged sword with that. Now, my dislikes, as I mentioned, the compression, while it is also a good thing, it's also a bad thing. I feel the quality could be a lot better if it wasn't trying to compress the footage so much. The camera is quite pricey. It's up around the $400 mark by itself, so it's one of the most expensive single cameras on the market. And it does require quite a bit of technological sympathy. So if you're not very good with a smartphone or Wi-Fi enabled devices, it's probably not going to be the camera for you. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this review, and I'll be back probably in the next week or two with a review of the Mini 0805. So I look forward to seeing you all then. Thank you. Goodbye.